What would you do if you were confronted with the terrorists with an AK-47 and a backpack full of ammunition? Well, not too long ago in our CBN studio, I talked to two men who knew what to do and saved dozens of lives in the process.
American tourists Anthony Sadler, Alek Skarlatos, and Spencer Stone boarded a train from Brussels to Paris on August 21, 2015. A heavily armed ISIS terrorist named Ayoub El-Khazzani was also on board. But when Khazzani began to carry out his attack, he ran straight into the three Americans who jumped into action, risking their lives to disarm and subdue Khazzani and saving hundreds of lives in the process. They tell their story in a new book, The 1517 to Paris, the true story of a terrorist, a train, and three American heroes.
Two of those American heroes, Anthony Sadler and Spencer Stone, are here with me now. Alek Skarlatos is off on military training and couldn't be here. Anthony and Spencer, great to be with you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us, sir.
Tell us what happened exactly on the train and what did alert you that something was wrong?
Well, Anthony and I were actually asleep at the time, and a train employee ran down the center aisle in between us, and that commotion kind of woke us up. I had headphones on, so I took them off. I looked over at Alek. He was kind of turned around in his seat. Looks like he sees a ghost. I hear glass breaking, people screaming. I look towards the back of the train myself. First thing I see is Ayoub coming through the doorway, shirtless, with a backpack strapped to the front of him, and he's bending down, picking up an AK-47.
Yeah. So, Spencer, you knew something was wrong when you saw the gun, obviously.
Yeah.
So what was your initial reaction? Your instinct?
I mean, I think everyone was in shock. There was a second. I kind of looked back, and I looked to see if anyone was going to do anything, and no one was. And so I figured, I had no hope that we were going to survive this. I just thought we were going to die right then and there. But he hadn't started shooting yet, so I figured, hey, I'll give it a shot. So I took off, and I ran straight at him. I had about 30 feet to cover, but luckily he actually pointed at me, pulled the trigger, and
He did?
He did. The firing pin struck the primer, but it was a bad primer in the bullet. So, I mean, it's just another a work of God that was, in that moment that kept us alive.
Yeah. So, Anthony, you were right behind Spencer at the time?
Yeah. At the time, I was asking myself, like, is this really happening? When we initially saw the gunman, and within seconds, Spencer had gotten up out of his seat to tackle him. And then once I saw Spencer get up, it was more instinctual for me and Alek just to follow our friend into battles.
Yeah. So you weren't thinking much about it, you were just instinct, you just went ahead.
I think it was, just instinct and survival, and just the way we're raised to, I guess, put others before ourselves and trust God, and luckily everything worked out.
So when you got to the terrorist, what happened there?
I tackled him. He, initially hit me with the gun as I ran up to him, blinded me in one eye. I started bleeding. Not a great way to start off the fight. I was able to, scuffle with him a little bit. I do jiu-jitsu, so that kicked in for me. I put him in a rear naked choke, and that's when Alek and Anthony ran up, and eventually we got to beat him up a little bit, and then eventually choked him unconscious. But he cut me in the back of the neck with his box cutter twice, trying to almost slit my throat, cut my left thumb down to the bone, severed my tendon and nerve, and it was just it was a crazy situation, but we eventually just choked him unconscious.
Do you think this is a lesson for today of how to respond in attacks that may happen, whether it's Orlando or San Bernardino?
I think our story kind of changed the narrative a little bit.
Right.
Too often in the media you hear about terrorism and mass casualties, but I think our story provides a different light to that, and nobody even lost life in our situation, including the gunman. So I think it's a blessing, and I think we hope that the readers and everybody in the world, it changes the narrative a little bit, that maybe these things can be averted in the future.
What role do you believe faith had to do in what you did?
100%.
Everything.
Really?
Yeah, there's just a list of miracles that happened. Even just getting us to that point and having everyone there on the train with specific skill set was just a miracle within itself. It's like we had the perfect people in place, and me and Anthony and Alek all feel the same way. We were destined to be on that train, and everything we had done prior to in our lives led to that moment. And I feel like we used every single skill we picked up along the way in a matter of 30 minutes.
Yeah, and you've written a book called The 1517 to Paris, and in the book, do you think this is another way for people to learn the lesson that people need to know right now?
Yeah, I think it's a good reflection, and I think it's a good tool that is out there and people could use, and we hope that our story provides some hope to people out there in this world today where terrorism is so prevalent, and we just hope that it changes the narrative a little bit.
Thanks for what you did, ordinary heroes, but I think it's a great, as you said, Anthony, it's a great way to change the narrative of all the things that are happening in the world today.